that Elemental is no longer in theaters, I finally decided to watch Pixar's latest movie, since while I want to support the studio and show them they don't need to make Toy Story 5 to turn up a profit, I was just busy at the time and had more important things to do and movies more important to see on the big screen than go see this movie for myself, which I guess not only on prior reception, but finally seeing it now, that was the right call. I think this is a good movie though. I think it isn't something I had to watch on the big screen. I am glad that it, I think, eventually turned up a profit internationally. Made more than twice its budget back, so I guess it was successful enough. I won't feel guilty because of that. Like, oh man, I wasn't there to support Elemental. I mean, I wouldn't pretend I was, there. But, yeah, okay, next sentence. The movie is from Peter Son, who directed The Good Dinosaur, and based on his own experiences, brings a movie that follows a world where elements, earth, wind, fire, and water, are people and live in Element City. Though fire is secluded and often treated harshly due to be, well, it's fire, the daughter of fire immigrants named Ember, voiced by Leah Lewis, owns a store called the Fireplace that they plan to give to her to take over when she's ready. Though during one day she's trying to run it, she causes damage to the pipes, and a water element named Wave, voiced by Mamoudou Athie, who works as a safety inspector, puts the shop at risk of shutting down, but as the two work together to stop that from happening, find a chance of romance and maybe something more together, when Amber's family is against the idea of fire and water mixing. I think the movie is good. It's not one of Pixar's best, and thinking of one of my favorite parts of Wall-E being the title character in Eve's romance, I think a Pixar movie, like, this is what I wanted from this movie most of all, was that I wanted a Pixar movie that was solely a romantic comedy. I thought it would be great, and, this is a studio that could nail that easily. And I believe their chemistry, and I like the two leads. I mean, it's just nothing that's special or unique. I don't know, I like the world they make. Not that it's that clever, like, I enjoy the little things of how this world works in the background and the central conflict of why Ember and Wade get together, but it's nothing new in terms of a rom-com. I thought most of the jokes worked, many didn't, mostly the puns. Like, honestly, I was kind of worried going in, like, oh god, this is gonna be mostly just puns. But no, there's surprisingly not much. If anything, it's more about physical comedy. Like, I don't know, like, again, there was okay, so there's a joke where a cloud person runs into the street and gets hit by a car and just vanishes into nothing, but then suddenly reappears. Like, I love something like that where it's like, I guess that's how it works. There was a surprisingly dark joke where they had flashback to a fire person dying, and just when she does die, she vanishes into nothing. So yes, there are questions I have about this world, but yes, that was kind of funny. I'm not even into dark humor, but I'm like, yeah, that works. But speaking of which, the character motivation, it could have been better developed, but again, it works fine. The animation is fantastic, of course. Like, when sand was shown, I was shocked at how realistic it looked. Like, sure, it's a little disruptive when it's these characters are on screen. I'm like, yeah, that does not really go with this realistic looking piece of sand. The character models are a bit odd, but it works, and yeah, it is impressive and gorgeous. I mean, how impressive it is to physically capture people made of fire and water in this movie. This is really impressive. More so than, sure, it probably is impressive as a movie, than on a technicality level, and as is, it's, again, it's a good movie. I mean, I wouldn't say it's okay. I think it is a good movie. It's, okay, I guess in many ways, it's an okay movie, and I enjoyed it for what it was, and never really hated it. I know people will say, well, it's at least not like Zootopia for some reason. Yeah, Zootopia is a way better movie. For all reasons. But thanks to the performances of its leads, and I'm not going to be harsh on it, comparing it to other Pixar movies, where in a vacuum, I think this is a good movie, thanks to the romance, and the animation being good enough to be good. Yes, this isn't one of their best, but what? That's like saying, it's like playing a 5-star chef made a 4-course meal once. Oh god, how dare I? I mean, I'd rather just eat out of a dumpster. Look, I enjoy it for what it was, and I never really hated it. I mean, I get why others wouldn't like this movie, and why others would love it. I like it, and I wouldn't hate having to watch it again. I think it's a good movie. That's what it is. I think it could have been great, but it does enough to satisfy me personally. It's not one of my higher ranked Pixar movies, but I'd rather watch this again than all the Cars movies. Also, but again, on its own, yeah, good movie. That's my takeaway. Good movie. I give Elemental a 7 out of 10. I thought about how Elemental was good despite being cliche and not doing anything great with its concept, but it did good enough for me to care about the characters, world, and the romance at its center. The same can be said for this movie, or at least for me. Honestly, when I first heard the premise, the son of the US president named Alex, played by Taylor Sakar Perez, and the Prince of England named Henry, played by Nicholas Galitzine, have a secret romantic relationship, my first thought was this based on a Wattpad novel? I can't be the only one who thinks that. Like, that premise sounds, for lack of a better word, dumb. But I can see it work, and if the novel is anything to go by, I guess it was a big enough hit for people to make it to a movie. So, I just kind of wanted something more than this. At least the movie is what I mean. I don't know what happens in the book. Maybe it's fantastic. The movie is based on the novel of the same name by Casey McQuiston, and the screenplay is by Matthew Lopez and Ted Malauer, with Lopez in the director's chair. As I said, it follows Alex and Henry, who at first can't stand each other, but for good publicity are forced to get along, which blossoms into a romance that could cause bigger outcry if revealed to the public. I like the time it takes for them to become a couple. It feels natural, and the two leads are believable, with Taylor Sakar Perez giving an outstanding performance during the later speech. But honestly, this is a Hallmark movie with, better camera work, and honestly, a good romance at its center compared to just being some boring couple in their 30s or 40s. It just does nothing interesting with the premise. Like, you only see the White House or the Oval Office and maybe one room in the Buckingham Palace. Maybe there were more rooms, but it wasn't like, wow, I can't believe they are doing this kind of stuff in these rooms. No, I shouldn't say it like that. Like, I don't know. If I was the one who had to write this story, I want to take more advantage of this concept. Like, I wish they met more interesting places given their status, because they just meet at motels and Alex's father's vacation home, which was in the poster. And I get that it's supposed to be a secret, but I think it'd make it something more, interesting to watch on a visual level. Like, it just feels cheap because of it. Like, oh, we can only afford to make one set, that you can recognize as, oh, this is the palace or this is the White House. The romance is nothing new, but with that being said, it is a great romance. I do praise the leads for that. I don't have problems with cliches, but by the time the third act breakup happens, it feels out of nowhere, and honestly, what followed was the first time I think this movie felt alive, considering, without spoilers, what happens if people found out about it. I just don't think this movie does anything interesting with its premise, and honestly, none of the characters feel interesting or complex enough to make it more than average. I think it's objectively okay, but nothing once I thought to myself, man, I'm really unsure where this is going, or I really want to see what happens. I'm just like, okay, what's next, I guess, by this point? I mean, that was my honest reaction to this. Like, I never laughed, I kind of smiled, but more so because I liked the romance, but honestly, I was pretty bored watching the movie. It just has no surprises or anything interesting to really make it stand apart besides maybe the leads, but then again, I can just see like the one scene of them gang along, and that's it. I don't need to watch anything else from this movie. I think of something like The American President with the great Aaron Sorkin script, the performance of Michael Douglas, who can make the President of the United States still relatable as just an everyday guy, despite, he's the President. Like, no one would care today about, oh man, I have to relate to the President. Why should I care or relate? I guess, that's just how cynical people are. And honestly, I don't mind something being simplistic. Hell, this could be a simple romance. And it is. That could work. I just wish it, could feel more alive with, like, where it takes its ideas. I will say, I would like to see Uma Thurman as the president in a political drama. She plays the, president in this movie. I forgot to mention that, but, she's good. And I do like the scene where Nick comes out to her, but I don't know. I think overall though, I just think the movie isn't bad. It just didn't do much for me, but I get why others would love it way more. And if others are interested, I would still recommend it. I just wish it did more with the premise instead of feeling by the numbers throughout. I give Red, White, and Royal Blue a 5.5 out of 10.